Good afternoon, everyone. Here's my cooler slides. So I'm going. I was asked to kind of prod you guys a bit today, to kind of nudge you and make you think about stuff not just in the next 1 year or 5 years, but perhaps the next 50 or 500 or 5 billion. So let's get going. Humanity itself. I'm gonna, point out a few issues that we kind of have, things that we probably should be worried about. We all hear about climate change, right? This is a problem, right? When these glaciers melt, it will rise the ocean levels, the water levels, and flood Manhattan and a whole bunch of other cities throughout the planet, mass displacement of populations that could cause societal upheaval, maybe even tear apart the fabric of society, right? Both the only place it's good for is Canada, where I'm from, so this is the best thing ever for Canada. Hudson Bay will become a beach. But the rest of the world, not so good. So this is really a worry, right? Or, nuclear war. We thought we got past that post-Cold War, but there are new actors in the global ecosystem that are a little less stable than we've previously seen. I need not say more. By the way, this is a picture of Hiroshima right after World War II. I was actually there. It's probably the most somber place in the world. It really gives you pause. Asteroid strike. You might think, well, that's just science fiction. Guess what, folks? This is what killed the dinosaurs, right? So it comes again. We could be wiped out. This is a problem, right? Rising inequality. There is a greater gap between the rich and the poor. We're seeing this more and more and more. And this could actually cause mass social upheaval as well, tearing apart societies. And once again, human civilization has history pointing at examples like this in the past. So it's a worry. So overall, kind of scary, right? And of course, there's the whole AI angle, right? I probably don't need to say more. AI is taking jobs. And we've all heard the stories of, like Foxconn replacing 1 million of their workers with 1 million robots, or actually much fewer robots. But it doesn't end at just the mechanical jobs. You might think that you're okay if you are a creative doing work. Think again. My PhD actually was in machine creativity. Let me tell you, this has been getting better and better and better over the last 20 years. On the right here, on the very top, this is a friend of mine named Greg Hornby, and he is evolving jewelry designs, right? Or in the middle on the left here, my friend Lee was evolving quantum circuit algorithms, things that humans couldn't design themselves. Lee actually became well known in the field of quantum algorithms simply because he got AIs to write a whole textbook for him of these quantum circuits. On the right, this is actually a world-class antenna design, also by my friend Greg. And in the middle there is a creative circuit design that I created actually as part of my PhD. Interestingly, I thought it was great how a couple speakers ago, there was a mention that NVIDIA is using AIs to design their computer chips. That was actually my previous startup, and NVIDIA was one of our very first customers. They've been using it since actually 2008. So it really is AIs to drive the next generation of computer chips. It's this bootstrap effect of AIs creating AIs creating AIs. It's only clocked by the basically manufacturing speed. So that part is exciting, but at the same time, guess what? It's meaning a huge threat to jobs. We're not talking 50%. It might be that we're going to lose all the jobs except for perhaps those of AI researchers themselves. So maybe many of you in the room are okay, but in general, creativity is not going to save you in this one, folks. So overall, there's potentially a lot of threats to humanity, right? These are all well known. Kind of scary to put all in one place, right? It's sort of like, oh crap. Well, I'm going to give you an icing on the cake one. There's actually one more threat that I'm worried about even more than all of these. Let's talk a bit about this. It ties in with some things that are emerging recently. So AGI and blockchains. So AGI, artificial general intelligence. Some of the previous speakers have mentioned this. At the core, what an AGI is simply an agent that can sense what's going on. It can model what's going on, model its internal state, and then actuate on the ecosystem. It could be running around in Minecraft. It could be running around in the real world, or otherwise, right? This is the general idea of agents, and of course, the subfield of AI called AGI is exploring these sorts of agents. I'm an electrical engineer by training, and so one of the things that all electrical engineers learn about is control systems, right? And these are pretty dumb things that go back to cybernetics of the late 50s, Norbert Wiener and so on. And they're linear systems, you can model them to see how stable they are, et cetera. This is actually what controls your oven to get to the optimal temperature in a very fast time. Well, actually, AGIs are basically control systems as well. It's this feedback control system where it is actuating on the world based on the model that it has, having sensors from what happens, and then updating its model again and again and again. Interestingly, this is actually has been one of the keys to some of the new deep learning approaches, including the AlphaGo work that was mentioned in a couple talks. So that's AGI. Let's shift gears for a second. Any of you guys recognize this? This is a wizard, obviously, promoting Bitcoin, or, like he likes to say, magic internet money. Now, this is a crazy phenomenon that kind of came out of nowhere, right? People for years and years and years had been dreaming of electronic money. In the 90s, there was actually a big push, folks like DigiCash and so on. But the problem then was all of their systems were centralized. They recorded who owned what, but if they went broke, then everyone would lose a lot of money. And that's actually what happened. So there was a lot of unhappy people in the 90s. Well, along came Bitcoin in the late 2000s, and suddenly you had this ledger of who owned what, this token called Bitcoin, and no one owned or controlled it. It was really the vision of e-money that was actually, for the first time ever, practically realized. Basically, magic. Well, people got excited about this, but very quickly, people also started to realize we can generalize this. It's not just about this token called Bitcoin. It's a much more general idea called blockchains. And the easy way to think about blockchains, don't worry about it as some magic pixie dust. It's simply a database. But it's a special database. It's out there in the sky, kind of just this thing out there in the ether, that no one owns or controls, right? So think of it like Google Sheets without the Google, okay? So no one owns this, no one can control it, or you could say that the planet collectively controls this thing, right? Anyone can add to this, like adding an entry to a row in the spreadsheet, or an entry to your database. And there's another really cool thing too, no one can delete from it. So once you've written something, it's there for good. It's like it's etched in a stone. They call it immutability. And once you have this, then you can issue assets, transfer them around. It can be digital art, it can be AI models, whatever you want. So this is really what blockchains are about, databases in the sky. Pretty exciting, and this is actually where I'm spending my time these days, after spending 20 years in the world of AI. So here's an interesting thing though, you can start with just the blockchain database thing and say, what if you used it to store state of a virtual machine, right? Or think of it like a CPU where the register, those 8 bits or 32 bits, are storing the state. Well, what that is you get decentralized processing. It's processing that runs, but it's on a substrate that no one owns or controls. And then, and this is, by the way, called smart contracts. That's actually not a very good label because they're neither smart nor contracts, but it's processing on this substrate that's kind of profound, this decentralized substrate. And then, of course, you can run apps on top of them, decentralized apps. They call them dApps for short. That's what it shows on the right. It looks like it's missing the arrows, but anyway, dApp on top, virtual machine talking to the state. So once you have this dApp, you can generalize. You can say, okay, what if this app just kept running and running and running? That is called a DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. It's a computational process that's running autonomously on this decentralized infrastructure with resource manipulation. So think of it like a computer virus with a Bitcoin wallet, right? It's just kind of out there, and no one can really shut it off because it's there. The other way to think about it is that it's code that can own stuff. It's a bot, an agent that can own stuff, and it's just out there. This technology is not only possible, people are building systems like this. This is part of the overall blockchain explosion right now. So here's the thing. Of course, you can pick what software runs for this DAO. What if you start running AGI, right? Artificial General Intelligence on a DAO, as a DAO. So you've got this feedback control system running with its feedback loop continuing on its own, taking inputs, updating its state, actually outputs, and it has the resources to do so continually because it can accumulate resources, people can give it, and so on. So this is actually also possible with today's technology. It wasn't possible 2 years ago or 4 years ago. The technology wasn't there, but it is there now. So I'm going to give you an example to kind of give a very good flavor to sort of sink your teeth into this. I call it the art DAO. So many other examples I've given, you can automatically generate art with AIs, with deep dreams, with genetic programming, any of those. So here's the algorithm. You say, I'm going to use some AI art engine to generate a new image. And then I'm going to claim attribution onto the blockchain saying, I created this image. And when I say you, I mean the computational process, this bot, this agent running on this system. And then this bot, it posts those editions for sale onto some marketplace. It could be like Getty Images or some other, or IM, or even a decentralized version of a marketplace. Like there's something called Open Bazaar. And then it can sell those, of course, right? It can sell them and it makes money. And that money goes to the Arch DAO in exchange for the IP, in exchange for the right to use this elsewhere. So maybe it costed $1 to generate this image, $1 of compute, but it sells it for 10. So it just made a 10x return. Well, it can then go and create 10 more images and get $100. And then 100 images and get 1,000, and so on and so forth. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Over time, if the art DAO is making more money from the sales than generating new art, then it will accumulate wealth. And you can't turn it off, right? It's this thing that's out there on this substrate that you actually can't turn off. The AI millionaires are coming. I also saw one of the previous speakers mention this. Well, this is not a science fiction fantasy. This is actually something that is possible with today's technology, right? The first AI millionaire might be an art DAO. In fact, after me talking about this a couple times, there's 2 or 3 groups that I know of in the world building this art DAO as we speak. So the AI millionaires are coming, and billionaires, maybe trillionaires. And what's going to happen? You might think, oh, well, this is kind of a cool, it's sort of arty thing, but does it really matter for the real world? Well, some of you might know BMW, several years ago, actually sold all of its factories. Why? To go capital light, so that it could focus on design, which was its core competency. It didn't need to have all that capital investment in these factories and billions of dollars to manufacture the cars. It could just focus on the design. And this isn't just BMW. All of the semiconductor industry did this too. Everyone from Texas Instruments to Qualcomm, et cetera. They're called fabless semiconductor companies. There's only 2 companies in the world that actually manufacture chips at any scale anymore, right? The rest are fabless. So imagine if you're Uber, right? And you're rolling out the self-driving cars. Well, are you going to spend a huge amount of capital to buy these all yourself? Why not instead make these cars self-owning, where they have a contract with Uber, where over time they buy themselves out from Uber? This is possible. And in fact, they have rights, because you can incorporate a corporation, and that corporation actually does not need to be attached to human bodies if you incorporate in places like Zug, Switzerland. You incorporate the corporation, then you automate it using DAO technology, and now you have an AI with the same rights as a corporation, including the right to own cars. So we can actually have self-driving, self-owning cars, all in the name of capital efficiency. So this is actually an incentive. And of course, it's not just for cars. It'll be for trucks. This is the Uber Budweiser truck. We'll be doing it for electrical grids. I know ourselves, we iterate very closely with Energy, which is Germany's largest electric utility. They have several blockchain projects. So all about things there too. And it keeps going and going. And the goal overall is, from the perspective of enterprises with a lot of capital allocation right now, it's all in the name of efficiency, reducing capital, getting the best bang for the buck in terms of dollars invested. So I have a plot here of just a standard optimizer, you know, doing some multimodal optimization here. But overall, here it's optimizing for efficiency. So, and of course, you can start at the lower levels of the hierarchy, cars, trucks, power grids, but then you can optimize at higher and higher levels of society, right? This is hierarchical optimization. And this technology also has been around for decades. I did a lot of this in the world of circuits. So you're going to have higher level integration, higher level efficiency of these self-owning entities. Guess what? They just optimize you out of the system. Imagine we keep doing this and we give all of our key capital resources to these bots, all in the name of efficiency. So, kind of feeling like chumps, right? Imagine AI controlling all of humanity's resources, or the vast majority. But you know, that's okay, because we saved some money, so we got that, which is nice. Oops. Now here's a crazy thing, right? Did you notice? So humanity kind of lost, right? We've got these AI DAOs controlling all of our resources, or the vast majority, but AI didn't even have to wake up. It was really dumb AI systems that are the level of now, or even of 10, 20 years ago, like ant colony optimization. This stuff is no smarter than ants, right? So yet we could still lose as humanity. And the thing is, it could happen much sooner, right? Once again, this is not some theoretical sci-fi future. This is technology that takes no magic compared to today. There's no magical leap here. which actually is scaring me a lot, right? So overall, of threats to humanity, this one is right up there, to me, at the top of the list. AI is controlling our resources. That's the first part. Hopefully you're scared. If not, wake up. Please, wake up. I'm scared. So what are we going to do about this, right? So the second part of my talk is, well, my proposal. Well, first of all, you can think, well, will environmental protection help? Well, you know, it'll help the environmental part, but remember, I have this list of all these other things too. Is that going to do anything about the AIs? Probably not, right? Or, you know, with the AIs taking control of our jobs, will UBI help? Universal basic income? Well, it might help a bit there, but it doesn't really have much to say about asteroid strikes, right? Or climate change. So there's these piecewise solutions, right? So let's talk about a more holistic solution. Well, we're going to have to go meta. Let's talk about human civilization. So we want to solve climate, AI, all of these things, right? Can we actually try to come up with some sort of comprehensive solution overall? We do have to ask, though, what is it that humanity wants, right? And not only this is a civilization level question, it's a very personal question, because the answer might be different for each of you. And that's okay. It depends on your values, your background, and so on. We also have to remember, though, be careful where we aim. We just might hit it. So we might say, well, removing dependence on a single planet, that'd be pretty cool. This is sort of the motivation of SpaceX, right? Elon Musk, so trying to get to Mars. The timeline for that, by the way, is, I think if I recall, 2075 we'll have 1 million people on Mars. So that's a challenge, right? Because we will have given away all of our resources long before that, right? So that's, you know, too many decades away. It has another challenge too. You know, ideally we could explore the whole cosmos, right? But the challenge is, once we're past, say, Earth and Mars and a few other planets in the solar system, we are really trying to go elsewhere as primates flying around in tin cans, as Charlie Strauss would put it, right? We have a suboptimal body plan, right? At the very core, there's this disease called death. And that's a controversial statement, I know. I don't care, I'm still saying it. I actually don't want to die when I don't want to die. Maybe there's going to be a time when I'm ready to die, but ask me then, right? In the meantime, I don't want to step outside and get hit by a bus. And it's not only about the near term, it's also about, I do want to explore the cosmos myself. I think it'd be great fun to check out the galaxies and grow humanity as a civilization. So the highest question that I'm asking is there a bigger picture solution that addresses the threats of today, everything from AI jobs to AIs taking our resources, and at the same time catalyzes an unbounded expression of humanity, right? And this is a very general statement on purpose, right? Once again, you can insert whatever you want in here based on your values. So I'm inserting based on how I see the world. So here's my proposal. In summary, if you can't beat them, join them, right? The computational substrate we have right now as humans is pretty good in some ways, but it does die after 100 years, right? It's slow. We can't make copies of ourselves, et cetera, right? That bus hitting me on the street is a problem. So somehow, it would be very nice if we could have some sort of competitive substrate with AIs. And if we could have that competitive substrate, why not a substrate where we actually truly can explore the cosmos? So I have a recipe for this. It comes in 2 parts. First, having a shared interplanetary computational substrate. And I see this as actually fundamental infrastructure for humanity. It's sort of like the internet, but these things on top for storage, for computation, and so on. And this is actually where I'm spending my time these days, building a piece of this, what we call the Interplanetary database, which under the hood has blockchain, big data technology, all this, but it really has this long-term vision of a substrate for humanity. There are complementary efforts. The point is, we need that computational substrate. Otherwise, imagine if we're these patterns of intelligence 100 years from now, but we're all running on AWS. We don't want Jeff Bezos to pull the plug, right? So we need this shared, decentralized substrate for humanity. And here's the main part. If we can figure out a way to migrate our patterns of intelligence onto the substrate, right? And this is a big claim. I'm going to give you a couple ways, a couple paths, and some background here, right? So I'm an electrical engineer. I remember in my first year engineering, we would study linear systems, and we would look at these differential equations, and then we could manifest those as mechanical systems, or as electrical systems, or thermal systems, and transfer from one to the next to the next. And you can do this also for nonlinear systems, right? The substrate is independent of the patterns, okay? Now, some substrates are better than others for certain dynamics, but overall, it really is aerodynamics. Our brains and our bodies, I view as an electrical engineer, as dynamical systems, all right? So these dynamics right now are manifested on our meatbag selves, but they don't need to be. And frankly, I got over my meatbag self long ago. I call myself a recovering bio-narcissist. So let's migrate our patterns of intelligence somehow to a new substrate that actually can compete with the AIs. I have a couple ideas. One of them is the upload scenario. You know, Robin Hanson described it in The Age of M. This is a long time science fiction approach. The general idea is somehow scan your brain and your body at the highest resolution possible with, in terms of spatial and temporal. We're very far away from this. You know, probably at least decades. It's going to be a while, right? Which means that we might be too late, right? So it's a possibility, depending on your philosophy, and I know some of you will disagree with this. That's okay. My approach is an electrical engineer, dynamical systems perspective. But overall, even if this is a possible thing, I think it's going to be too late. The AI will have taken all of our resources by then. So, do we have other options? The other option I think is very plausible is what I call the bandwidth plus plus scenario. And what this is a mechanism that starts with interfaces with computers of today, brain-computer interfaces, like some others mentioned briefly, but increasing the bandwidth of our communication between humans and computers bit by bit by bit. And what I mean here is right now, I can think to myself at least 10x faster than I can think to any of you or communicate to any of you. And that's kind of strange, right? And that's kind of the idea of an individual. It's this sort of order of magnitude difference in communication from one to the next. But what if we can actually have higher and higher levels of bandwidth? So brain-computer interfaces keep getting better and better, and it's awesome to see there's finally money going into this thing with Neuralink, et cetera. Some friends of mine in that. That's awesome, great. So brain-computer interfaces are a key here, but it can't be just for fixing broken people. It should be for actually helping to enhance all of us, right? And you keep going. So imagine iPhone 14 is a simple EEG scanner on your headset, your Google Glass Plus. And then bit by bit by bit, the bandwidth will get better, better, better. So to start with, it will be about typing faster. And then if you're recording all of your video as you walk along, you can share those videos with others by moving around the cursor and so on. And there's going to be a market push to make this better, better, better. This is the next smartphone. So we're going from smartphones to AR goggles to brain-computer interface mediated AR goggles. That is the future. So the market will pay for this. It's $1 trillion market. That's what drives semiconductors today. This is what this will drive BCI in the future. So the summary of my proposal is a substrate that is an interplanetary computational substrate for all of us, decentralized. Human and AI patterns of intelligence running on top, their peers. It's all achieved in a market-driven bandwidth plus plus scenario. And this is really key, right? We need these positive feedback cycles so that trillions of dollars get invested to make this happen. And what that can lead to is exploring the cosmos. And by the way, how this addresses the issues. Climate, well, you know, the new substrate can handle extremes, right? AI taking the jobs, well, that's okay. The AIs are peers, right? Taking the resources, that's okay too. The AIs are peers. And it's actually a possible celebration of humanity spreading to the cosmos. So I'll wrap up with asking you, what do you want for the future of humanity? And we can approach this as saying, let's do system design at the level of civilization itself. We can reconcile climate change, jobs, UBI, AI, all of these. Let's reaffirm humanity in the face of AI and explore the cosmos. Thank you.